Right, joining us now is Udeme Ufot, the Group Managing Director of SO&U and Chairman, Publicity and Communications Committee of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. It's a joy having you, Udeme, this morning. Thank you so much for joining us after all of this time. Real quickly, I want to know what is going on in the advertising sector. SO&U did a report recently that I got as regards, the advertising spend, the advertising sector, and what is happening in general. Maybe you could just expatiate on that report, and I'll take the proceedings from there.
Thank you, Seni, and thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
As we're all aware now, the world is going through the worst pandemic is experienced in the last 100 years. And this pandemic is having its toll on economies, on businesses, and even on individuals. One thing is clear, that the world is taking a turn that we never expected. We don't know how this will end or when it will even end. But the challenge here is that it's been estimated that economic losses globally would amount to over $2.7 trillion at the end of this pandemic. That's whenever it ends. It, of course, affects businesses adversely. And the Nigerian advertising industry is not left out of these challenges. On record, a study by Marketing Week has indicated that in April 2020, 75% of advertisers cut their budgets. And this has reflected in losses to agencies bordering between 50% on radio and television, to sometimes up to 99% on out of home. So these are indeed very challenging times at the global level. We have also seen among the global advertising networks where there have been massive cuts in terms of their costs. We've seen salary cuts starting from 20% and up to even 30% within some networks. We've seen top executives step down just to ensure that they can reduce the impact of these losses on the agencies. Back in Nigeria, we are not left out of the challenges that the global advertising industry is facing. There have been major cuts in campaigns, reductions. Whilst we may not have similar data readily available, one thing is obvious, that with lockdowns and shutdowns, agencies are unable to operate. And when you look at the tripod of the industry itself, the advertising industry in Nigeria stands on three legs. You have the advertisers, you have the agencies, and of course, you have the media. Where the advertisers who spend the money, the marketers, have been hard hit. Except you're operating in essential services, it means you must shut down your operations. And even some companies, out of concern for the health of their staff, have had to also actually volunteer to shut down. It means, of course, that production is impaired, revenues, of course, are affected, and there's no point advertising to a consumer that is really not there, who's locked down at home. And when you look at the atmosphere itself, people are living in fear and panic. Tomorrow is not very clear. Tomorrow is not sure. So the attitude by most consumers is to hold on to whatever cash that they have, because the threats of salary cuts, of job losses, of company collapses, even in terms of economic collapse of states and countries, that is looming before us. So advertising agencies have chosen to take a very conservative approach at this point in time. All is not well. It's extremely challenging, but I think an opportunity is there for the more enterprising and the more far-sighted to take advantage of this challenge that we face.
Indeed, all is not lost, and there's an opportunity there. Let me ask you, because brands, like you said, are taking the heat and they're taking the cuts, but how should they be marketing their way out of this pandemic? And I ask because a very great marketing activist, Henry Ford, once said that a man who stops advertising to save money is like a man who stops clock to save time. And that is counterproductive. So how should they be spending their money this time around, and where should the content be focusing on?
Well, it starts from, thank you, Adiswa. It starts from first and foremost having a sound understanding of the consumers, their mindset, where they are, and what their needs would be. And for me, you'll be looking at essentially two options. Option one is that in the current situation, where would the mind of the consumer be? Of course, health is paramount. And so for an advertising agency, if you do not currently have a client in that space, it's something you should be looking forward to doing to ensure that you can actually have a client whose communications will be relevant to the moment. Now, if you are not that fortunate, you may also have a very robust client who is, who has the capacity to weather the storms of the moment and will be more inclined to ensure that engagement continues with these consumers, even if you cannot directly market to them. So there'll be other opportunities to engage. But what is most important is that at the end of this storm, we must get back to the consumer, and how we engage at this point in time with the consumers in retaining their trust, in encouraging and inspiring them would inform how they relate to us at the end of the pandemic. So it's therefore important that advertisers working with the agencies can come up with communication programs that continue to engage with their consumers, even if they're not opportune to go out and buy, even if they're not comfortable to make purchases now. But they must remain top of mind with their consumers to stay relevant after the pandemic situation.
Okay, definitely. I mean, we do have the traditional out-of-home advertisements. We have digital media and then social media and paid search. I want to focus on digital media because everyone is online now. So my question to you is, how important is it in this COVID-19 era to show proof of performance and metrics? And then secondly, the president of the Outdoor Advertising Agencies of Nigeria has suggested the implementation of a standard operating procedure post-COVID-19. Do you agree with that train of thought?
Well, first and foremost, I think if you're not careful, expectations of online advertising may be a bit overrated. Studies have shown that whilst there was expectation that there will be an upsurge, it has not been exactly so. For some advertisers, or some retailers who have not been proactive enough to engage online marketing, they have suffered the most. I read last week, for instance, of the case of Primark in the UK, who have taken a plunge. They had absolutely no online presence. And they've taken a plunge from revenues of almost £670 million a month to zero because they had no online presence. But while we think that because consumers are at home and they're more inclined to go online to make purchases and engage, unfortunately, as I said earlier on, the atmosphere is very uncertain. There's apprehension, and there's advice all around that people should try and hold on to whatever cash that they have because of the uncertainty of the future. And no one knows how long this will last or how exactly it will end. And even when it ends, nobody is sure of the new ways of life that we may have to contend with. So it's a time for extreme caution. And what we've therefore observed is that while we had expected a major spike in online advertising and retail, it has not been exactly so. That's the picture. In terms of the comment by the Outdoor Association president, I think it's a time for all industry players to think more cooperatively. There should be more collaboration. There should be ways of sustaining members. And of course, even the members themselves must think more creatively. It is on record that globally, the most affected of the sectors appears to be out of home, which is where the outdoor operations come in. And whatever they can do right now to support themselves, support each other, and stay connected with their clients will be very critical to their survival.
All right, real quickly, in less than 30 seconds, as time is not our friend, what should be the new culture of advertising, in this new era of the new normal? Because culture is important. I say that, like they say in management speak, culture, we eat strategy for breakfast. So what should be the new culture for advertisers? Or advertising?
Well, thank you, Oseni. If we look at the trends in Nigerian media of recent, we'd observe that social media has continued to grow in Nigeria. At present, we have 27 million people who are consistently active on social media. We have 85.5 million Nigerians connected to the internet. These are vast opportunities. We also observe that during this period of lockdown, people who previously have been sort of scared of digital, who would not use digital banking or online retail, have been forced to retreat or resort to online transactions. What that means is that there'll be a shift in our ways of doing things, a shift in our habits, so that we will see more consumers moving more and more to the sector of online engagements. What that means is that agencies must therefore stay in tune with these movements. There'll be more engagement online, and I think as we look at the near future, at the end of all this, I would expect to see some kind of convergence, some kind of a bridging of the gap between the traditional agencies using traditional media and the previously purely online digital agencies. I see the possibility of that gap being bridged, because for the traditional agencies, if they don't scale up their online capabilities, if they don't scale up digital across the agency, I'm afraid survival may be quite a challenge for them. So I see at the end of all of this that we will be moving more as agencies, as individuals, to the digital platform than we were doing before.
All right. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. There's still a lot to talk about, but perhaps we'll bring you some other time. Thank you so much, Udeme Ufot, for coming on the show this morning.